All right, let's do
Understand
this.
is that time really doesn't exist. Clocks exist. Time doesn't exist.
Right.
And like you said, we've been given this functional arrow of time, which puts us in one specific direction so that we can organize our thoughts and our days and our years and weeks and what we're going to do and where we're going to meet up with somebody and everything else. So we have this ability to coordinate and collaborate with each other, like how we're here today at this specific time. However, if you understand that time is also an illusion, it's something that you can use as a tool, but if you also understand that it's an illusion, then you can actually master time and you can maximize what you're doing on this planet.
I'm 19 Keys, and this is high level conversation. Tap in with the guy. Peace, family. Welcome back to another high level conversation. Today we have a powerful presentation, a very powerful energy, spirit, man, guide, scholar, polymath, intellectual, executive, actor, producer, author, you understand me, TV host, academia, a man really whom those who have seen needs no introduction. You understand me? A very extraterrestrial intellect. You understand me? A person that can dive in multi-dimensional areas. You understand me? And a person that I don't have to hold back with whatsoever. You understand me? This is a man who has, secured funding to build underground cities in Georgia. You understand me? A person who is a two-time best-selling author. You understand me? Of Woke Doesn't Mean Broke, and of the Emerald Tablets, and also the founder of Forbidden Knowledge. You may have seen him on the Travel Channel. You may have seen him on the History Channel. You understand me? You may have seen him in another dimension when you just happened to be popping some shrooms or something and traveling through somewhere. And Billy Carson was right there floating next to you, giving you some guy. You understand me? This is a powerful brother. Not only is he found things here on Earth, but he's actually found things out in space. You understand me? And we're gonna dive deep into exactly what that means. So today, I want to introduce you to none other than the most powerful, prolific brother known as Mr. Billy Carson.
Hey, thank you, man. Appreciate
Welcome.
you having me on.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the great introduction.
Absolutely, man. I make sure I have very intelligent people, you understand me, who require a great introduction, you understand me. For those, of course, like I said, who know you, you don't require any introduction. You understand me? You are a man, a great platform, you understand me, that stands on his own merit based on the knowledge that you possess, research, investigate, and deliver to the masses.
Thanks, man.
Today, man, I want to have a roundabout conversation about a multitude of different subjects. Here at High Level Conversations, I like to have an actual cipher, you understand me, where we build and we collide and create new universes, you understand me, a university of thoughts. And first thing I wanted to talk about was time itself.
Yeah.
And the ideas of time. There's a lot of people that's trapped into increments of time that they have to work in, you understand me, from a 9 to 5 position, and they have to live within windows of hours and dissect their days based on that. You understand me? And the unfortunate reality of it is that most people will never have a true understanding of life because they're living on borrowed time. You understand me? And so I'm always working to help present perspective and observation on where people can understand the laws of time a little more. You understand me? Especially as we enter into fourth and fifth dimensional phases here, you understand me, on this planet Earth. You understand me? Or the universe, as we will. Human beings, we very interesting, beings. You understand me? Like, just the idea that we allow someone else to decide what time is for us is a very interesting thing. Right? From Julius Caesar to the Roman Pope with his papal bulls deciding, what is a 365 calendar, what is talking about 7-day weeks and 60 seconds and 60 minutes. And we say, okay, let's go along with it. And we don't realize that it speeds up, you understand me, the process from being born to when you leave this place. And then we already have expectations on what life is going to be because there's other people that tell us what it is, when we're going to die, when we get old, when we're going to feel a certain way. So it sets up a curation for us to die a certain way and at a certain speed.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear what your interpretation of what time is first.
Yeah, well, this is a very deep question. I've talked about this so many times in different
So many times,
lectures and workshops, because what people in the third dimension, we're in the third dimension, what we tend to not understand is that time really doesn't exist. Clocks exist. Time doesn't exist.
Right.
And like you said, we've been given this functional arrow of time, which puts us in one specific direction so that we can organize our thoughts and our days and our years and weeks and what we're going to do and where we're going to meet up with somebody and everything else. So we have this ability to coordinate and collaborate with each other, like how we're here today at this specific time. However, if you understand that time is also an illusion, it's something that you can use as a tool, but if you also understand that it's an illusion, then you can actually master time and you can maximize what you're doing on this planet. Because if you go any high, in all the higher dimensions, we're in the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and all the way up.
For the layman that don't understand what being in the third dimension means, can you give us a breakdown?
Okay, sure. So if you draw a line on a piece of paper, that's the first dimension. If you then connect those lines and create a house on a piece of paper, that's a two-dimensional structure, or you can move it into a computer. Anything you see in a computer that looks 3D is actually 2D. Right? So, and because we're in the third, we can see down into 2D, we can see all the way down, obviously, into 1D, and we can manipulate those dimensions from our higher selves. Now, now there are beings in fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensions. There's people above us. Now, because of that, they see us and they recognize the past, present, and future operating all at the same time. Everything's happening at once.
Right.
There is no separation between the past, present, and the future. The arrow doesn't exist. Because they're higher than us, they can look down into the third and they can see into what we're doing. So
who are hey, we got to unpack a little bit. We got to unpack.
Okay.
It's high level, but I want to make sure that the people can follow along with it. So, talking about third dimension, right? It say ants are not third dimensional beings, right? Because they can't see upward, right? They're not horizontal. You understand me? They exist on a plane where they're looking forward, right? So when you're moving about the rest of the world that is higher up to them, they have no access to that, no perspective on that whatsoever. You understand me? For them, everything is straight and in front of them. For human beings, we have the ability to look upward, to look inward, to look outward, to look around, right? So therefore, we're connected into different angles, different perspectives, and different dimensions. You understand me? And then what I wanted to get with next, so let's say we got the third dimension, right? Now, we're talking about the fourth dimension, right? What is the fourth dimension?
The fourth dimension is something called a tesseract. And if you go into the ancient text, it's Metatron's cube. Meta, M-E-T-A, meta, obviously, the metaverse, right? They got that from Metatron's cube. It's a fourth dimensional substructure. Now, this fourth dimension is really something called a quasi-crystal. And this quasi-crystal in the fourth dimension, it casts a shadow. And the shadow that it casts, it creates the realm that we're living in here. We're living in a shadow of a higher dimension. That shadow creates a third dimension. It actually creates a fractal of it, creates this fractal holographic matrix that we're actually maneuvering in the third dimension right now.
So would the fourth dimension be considered a dimension of time?
You can address a fourth dimension of time like Albert Einstein was saying if you're just looking at a third plus a fourth being the arrow. But when you actually move up into another dimension, we now know in quantum physics that there is actually a fourth dimension. So all dimensions are in 90-degree angles of each other. And according to quantum theory right now, we're really anticipating that there's at least 11 dimensions, or otherwise the universe would collapse. So there really is truly a fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, all the way up, not just the arrow of time. That's just something extra. They try to make it make sense back then by saying the fourth dimension is time. But time is actually not a dimension at all.
So now that's a very interesting, because it's a lot that I'm sure that everybody's like, all right, I thought I was smart, and then I tried to keep up, and then I got left behind.
Right.
You understand me? And what I want to bring people up to speed. You understand me? And the ideas in correlation to the analogy of how we're moving as a collective human species, specifically with technology, right? Because I think it can be connected to cellular technology, right? Going from 3G to 4G. And, going from 3G to 4G to 5G, which allows us to be able to do different things that we normally weren't able to do that weren't possible,
Yeah.
right? Let's say you got 3G phones, it's hell, you make better, faster calls, you understand me, connected. Then you get to 4G and you're talking about now applications and streaming, right? And Wi-Fi, right? Being able to connect within systems and the Internet of Things. And then 5G allowing completely new systems of possibility. And this was where I think a lot of people missed the point in 2020 where everybody was going through the craze of whether 5G was killing them or not. It was more so what was 5G going to do, right? So the NFTs and the Web3, right? And you're talking about, AR, VR, spatial reality, all these different things are not possible unless you have 5G being in connection. So it was representing a new world being produced outward. And it wasn't just an accident that NFTs came after the pandemic and this technology came after. There was something happening at that same point in time that for me, it was entering into a new phase of the world, a new dimension, a new speed, right? And that speed, can be known as time, if you will. And a lot of people without that ability to process at a high level, right? Like you got bandwidth, you got landline speed, you got Wi-Fi speed, you got 5G speed, you get left behind. So everything seems that it's moving fast, but that's only because you're not moving as fast.
Right.
Everything stands still when you're moving at the same speed. You understand me? And so what I've always tried to do is keep people up to speed where we at in the dimension that we're currently in, or a little bit above, so you can be ahead of your time as a visionary. Because the fastest speed is the mind. You understand me? Being able to travel in your thought, right? That can take you into time, that can take you ahead of time, if you will. But the ideas of time itself, I love the concept that it being an illusion because, even the era where time is connected to language, right? That I wrote in my book about how when we speak in the English language, it's a very future tense reference, right? So we're always referencing the future as we speak. I will be there, I'm going to do this. And we have so many different phrases within the language. We're always pushing ourselves, not connecting to the present, but at a later point in day and time. You understand me? And I think that learning to be present connects us to the power that we have in control over. And then once you have that power, then you know how to create seeds that can control the rest of the time. But you said something about beings, right? Now, we always look at ourselves as people, but then when we talk about people, you're talking about human beings, right? The being part is not something that the average person understands, right? And then when you're saying that there are other beings, who are these other beings?
I believe personally, just based off of my research, and I've gone through now over 1,000 scriptures, texts, papyruses, cuneiform tablets from all over the world. They all have a very similar story. And all these ancient civilizations talk about beings, not just beings who came here from other planets, people that look like us and we look like them. In other words, not identical, but very similar. In other words, a bilateral, bipedal hominid of some type that can maneuver around, that has appendages that can manipulate the environment, because without that, you can't move out into space and other places. And they also talk about multidimensional. You get into like the Nag Hammadi and stuff like that. You're talking about multidimensional beings. And so in physics, in quantum physics in particular, they started theorizing on these dimensions and were able to even analyze and discover some that they actually do exist. And on top of that, they realized that the dimensions are packed so tight on top of one another that if you can phase shift your atomic structure, your subatomic frequency, you can walk right into another dimension. And so they started postulating, what if beings from higher dimensions are some of these apparitions and these paranormal phenomena that we're seeing, are they able to maybe take a glimpse or a peek? Are they phasing through into our universe? And so from higher dimensions. And so they started really theorizing it. It seems to be, and based on my research, that there's people living everywhere. Not just, and I'm not talking about little green men with antenna. I think that there's people living all throughout this universe in the third dimension. And I think there's people living all throughout even higher, multiple dimensions. Maybe at a certain level, a certain height in those dimensions. Maybe they don't have a real corporeal body.
Right, non-physical.
Non-physical, you know what I'm saying? But I believe that the consciousness is there.
that part is interesting, the non-physical aspect, because I understand that and I can believe in that idea and that concept. It's like what people think. I think of angels as angels, right?
Right.
Because angels are supposed to exist in between dimensions.
Yeah.
You understand me? And angles, you understand me, are dimensions,
That's
right?
right.
And so it's like
Already?
perspective is your angle in which you see things and
Yep.
view things. And oftentimes angels come and gives us new perspective, new thoughts. You understand me?
Yeah.
Arriving from a different, completely dimension of thought that we couldn't arrive at ourselves.
Correct.
But at the same time, when you're talking about non-corporeal bodies or non-physical bodies, you understand me? I like that
Yeah.
concept because when you're talking
Hopefully
about
they have a good
time, you're
structure
talking
with this
about
new
light,
coach.
you're talking about all of these different ways in which light or energy can exist within, and
Right.
consciousness, right? The
his
awareness
daughters
of,
are,
output. You understand? Mathematical output, right? Do you believe that the universe is
really
mathematical?
good.
Oh, absolutely. The language of God is mathematics, because mathematics can literally explain everything
You
that
got
we
lucky on that
experience, and everything also that exists. Even the fact that we're existing in a light matrix can be proven through mathematics. So we're living in a matrix that's basically written on mathematics called Adinkra codes. And these Adinkra codes go all the way back
see
to
tomorrow.
the Dogons. The Dogon tribes out of Mali, Africa.
Yeah.
They actually originated these codes, and they were given
We
these
was
codes by
late,
the
but
Nomo, and they learned
we
them.
weren't
They
late.
drew them out as art forms. But now, and they put them on clothing and blankets and everything else.
So the Dogon tribe, very interesting
Yeah.
tribe, that was able to discover,
That went to do more cardio, yeah.
systems before telescopes and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So how did they arrive to be able to, because I know a lot of people, I posted about this not too long ago, people want to understand how the hell did the Dogon tribe arrive to it,
Yeah.
right? I just subscribe to, us being, gods, melanated beings on this planet Earth. We
Because we already
connected
have her
in a
squared
way that
into
we just
that.
don't understand anymore.
He needs
You understand
time
me?
to
And being multidimensional,
do his homework
I think
and
about
catch up.
physics in that aspect where you're talking about things being entangled. Not Will and Jada entanglements, you understand me? But quantum entanglements.
Right. Yeah.
And once you understand that, being multidimensional to me is easily understood from the fact that you can break us down to atoms, right? And then
Yeah.
cells, and then we get into our skin and we see our physical.
Yeah.
But from an atomic level, those are different laws,
Yeah.
right? And we're made up of atoms. So that an aspect of our existence
Oh,
is
yeah.
obeying different laws of the
That's a really
universe.
good one.
And then our cells are obeying different
this
laws
worked
of
for a
gravity
lot of
and
people.
magnetism, right, and flow. But then we as human beings are obeying different laws, right, of gravity and magnetism in the universe. And then we forget about the universal laws of our multidimensional self
Yeah.
because we only know
Yeah.
man's law.
Exactly.
You understand
We
me? So I
have
think
an
being
excuse.
multidimensional is easily understood as above, so below. You understand me? But
Didn't
the
I see
idea
a
of the
picture
Dogon
it?
people being able to chart
That
systems,
road is
how were
pretty
they
good,
able to
that road.
figure that out? You understand me? Before the Europeans had an idea of what was out there.
Right. Well, to be honest with you, if you go
I
all
hope
the
a
way
lot
back
of
to
people
ancient
buy it.
Dogon history, before they got to Mali, they were in the land of Kem. They were the original inhabitants of the land of Kem
man.
before it was called Egypt. And so,
Really good
Kim
deal.
meaning the land of blacks.
the land of blacks, correct. Exactly, land of blacks.
mean,
Kem
that's
was
a
black,
really good
it's all
deal.
black. That's in the tablets.
So Kim, there's so much Jews in here. But so in Kim, you understand me? That's Africa,
Yeah. that's
right? I know everybody call the Middle East as if
It's Africa, man.
it's the Middle East is the most funniest made up concept, magical
Yeah.
idea on the planet.
I know.
Because it's like you have in Africa, but no, this is like the Middle East Africa. It doesn't
Right.
count for sub-Saharan
Right,
Africa,
yeah.
Northern Africa, and
Right.
East Africa. Like,
Yeah.
but it's Africa, right?
It's Africa.
Yeah. So
Yeah. I mean,
for those who don't
Cairo
know,
is in Africa.
Cairo's in Africa.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I know, people still get it wrong till this day.
That's crazy.
It
But go
surprises
ahead.
me. But so they, according to their records and their handed down verbal history, their records are etched into caves and stuff
Yeah.
like that. The Nomo came here from Sirius B. Okay, so there's a trinary star system that we know of called Sirius, the Sirius star system, A, B, and C.
Yeah.
B is a fail star. In other words, it ran out of fuel, turned into a white dwarf.
Literally.
These beings were orbiting on a
Even the
planet that
structures
orbited
there.
that star, according to the Dogon, not me. Came here, they're called the Nomo. The Dogon called them the Nomo. Taught them all about the
I
star
wonder what
system,
she
the
thinks
orbital
about
pattern,
that, Robin.
our entire solar system,
I'm sure
the
she's
names,
like,
the
oh,
shapes,
that's a
the sizes, the
compliment.
colors of all the planets in our solar system, all the planetary alignments. And they even knew
What?
that that white dwarf star was so gravitationally heavy that one spoonful couldn't be lifted by over 1 million men.
Absolutely.
They even knew that. We learned that in quantum mechanics and quantum physics in the 1970s, 1980s.
What is she not
we
doing?
hypothesized.
Running stroller?
And obviously, we couldn't even see that star until the 1980s,
Does he-
1970s. I'm
Wow.
sorry,
Oh,
So
yeah,
when
she
did
does have a
they
baby.
record it?
thousands
What
of
is
years
she
ago.
doing?
Thousands of
Thousands.
years ago.
It's like we're talking about over 6,000,
Does
7,000.
she take a day off?
They've had depictions of them and everything else, and they taught them how to make these
So we can't
doggone
take any
masks.
day
But
off,
they also
then.
gave them the Adinkra codes. Now these Adinkra codes look like designs on
Jeez.
clothing and
then
patterns.
she works out twice a day.
When you turn these designs into three-dimensional structures, they become something called error-correcting codes. And Professor
Imagine she
James S.
fucking
Gates, a black
wears
professor who
yellow
used to be the
her
science advisor
honeymoon.
for Obama when he was in
That poor
office.
guy.
He's now the professor, I believe, at the University of Maryland in supersymmetry and theoretical physics. He discovered these Adinkra codes. He rediscovered them, obviously, and he turned them into
Yeah, but it's a
three-dimensional
difference
objects.
between
And then from there, he
fit
found the
and then her
error-correcting
you wearing
codes.
yellow.
He was analyzing and accessing information about the ether of space-time, and he discovered that the entire ether, in other words, everything this soup that we're
Are you
operating in
sure?
throughout the entire universe, is running on a specific code. It's called an Adinkra code. It's called error-correcting codes. The same exact kind of codes that run search engines and web browsers. That's what's running the universe.
So listen now. At certain points in time in the interview, the glasses got to come off. This was one of those points in time when we're talking about Adinkra codes and going into multidimensional aspects of thinking. You know,
This episode is brought to you by Goldwater.
but you know, being connected to the stars, you understand me, and being connected to the universe is a very interesting aspect of thinking. You know, I grew up, you know, in the Nation of Islam,
Okay.
and in the Nation of Islam, there is a lot of, you know, astronomical teachings, you know, about
What?
astronomy and sizes of the planets and this. That was one of the first things we had to learn.
Wow.
Right, where the distance
Nasty
between the
looking.
planets, the speed of light, the speed of sound, right? You know, the total square mileage of the water, earth, land, mountains, rivers, lakes,
Wow.
right? Everything. So, you know, deep into the teachings of Elijah Muhammad is astronomy,
Yeah.
right? He wasn't really into astrology because he said it was too much guesswork. But astronomy he was into because it was mathematical.
Yeah.
And you're talking about, you know, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, for a black man to be teaching astronomy, especially the poor black people in America. It was, it was,
It was light years ahead of his time.
it was an interesting indication of, you know, where he got his knowledge.
Yeah.
Because he had a third grade education, but he was teaching about astronomy.
Yeah.
Right? And he would dare the scholars of the world to prove him wrong. Of course, none of them did, right? Because he was talking about Pluto back in those days before they would recognize Pluto, right? And I used to always think about why. And one of the last books that he wrote was called The Theology of Time.
Oh, wow.
And Theology of Time was, it's not a book for the beginner, initiate. You understand me? It's definitely more novice when you get into your understanding.
Yeah.
And then that's when he proposed and he talked about alien life on Mars, right? He talked about the different planets who can and who can't go there, what they were doing and building. Like, he has very detailed composition of thought on extraterrestrial life.
Yeah.
You understand me? And the origins of
even her diet
the
is
planet
amazing.
itself and the universe itself. You know, and it's very interesting because we often believe that our connection to, you know, the way that the Dogons were able to chart the stars is lost.
Yeah.
Right? You know, but that knowledge has always been within our DNA and always been passed down within us. There's just certain keepers of that knowledge.
Exactly.
Right? And those keepers of the knowledge are not often listened to because, especially today, we in a very static, distracted, low-level way of thinking. So it's like you have to think about the mind, and it's not even to say that they were the most intelligent people on the planet, but connected. You understand me? As being different. Like that's a different type of intelligence.
Yep.
So
Because we
Beach
only
Bodies
measure
and Beds.
academia or scholarship
They're
intelligence that
better.
you get from universities, but we don't measure the intelligence you get from the universe.
Yeah.
I don't
yeah.
know.
You understand me? I want to talk about, you know, I don't want to leave time in the star system just yet, but I do want to talk about your relationship with astronomy and whether you believe astrology to be a true science or not.
The blue thing?
Well, I'm actually an amateur astronomer.
Okay.
I've been doing that for a long time.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
I
'cause
have
it's
a
cheaper
real nice
to-
telescope. I have a Celestron SLR, and it's a real nice telescope. You can actually see the rings of Saturn. You can see Jupiter. You can see Mars.
Yeah.
I took a famous picture that's been circulating for years of Mars during the summer. When you take a picture
I
of
don't know how
Mars
you're
during
gonna
the
lead these
summer,
people.
it actually has green, it has blues. It's not a red planet. You can see that the ice caps are smaller, which means they've melted. There's a lot of liquid water on the planet. And a lot of those greens, I believe, is vegetation. You know, and now all the
Does he
science
say
data
any-
is coming back out from NASA. Now all of a sudden press releases are coming out. The soil on Mars is better for growing crops than on Earth. Now they're saying this, there's billions of tons of liquid water on Mars now.
Yeah.
You know what
I
I'm
can
saying?
believe that.
And they're also talking about the fact that there's an atmosphere that is the equivalent to being like 18,000 feet above sea level, but that's like going to Peru. I'm going to Peru in a few weeks, right? So same thing. You got to acclimate to that height, to that low oxygen, but you can still breathe as long as you stay close to the ground. Once you go higher up, it's going to be
What
very
a
dangerous.
combo.
But if you're within like 10 feet of the ground, you can actually breathe. You just need to acclimate. So all of a sudden, all this is coming out because why?
Oh,
They're getting
okay.
ready to, you know, to build an infrastructure up there, in my opinion, and do a breakaway civilization. That's
On
what the whole
Mars.
Elon Musk and all that's on Mars is all about. So I got really into it. Now, one of the reasons why I built the underground shelter that you mentioned, called Fort Terra Nova, that was back in 2012, was because I was analyzing the precession of the equinoxes, the movement of the stars across the sky, the constellations across the sky. I noticed that they were speeding up. Based on my
Oh, really?
calculations, it was moving, instead of 27,000
Okay.
years for one cycle, it was actually averaging around 25,000. And I'm like, are the books wrong? Are these great astronomers wrong, or what's going on? And the more I dug into it, the more I looked into it, I
Yeah.
realized the only thing that can explain this is if our
can
sun is
keep
orbiting
that one.
something. It would need breakaway speed, and it would, it would speed up and it would slow down, speed up and slow down. So I started digging into that. I found out that they had something they were calling nemesis out there, something that they couldn't exactly
They're
say
never
what
gonna
it
be able
was,
to
but they were
point
saying there was
out.
a huge object out there orbiting our sun, and our
It's
sun
just
was
too
orbiting
extreme.
it. And they found it about 3 or 4 years ago. They labeled it Planet 9, but really is a brown dwarf star. They found a brown dwarf orbiting our sun. So we live in a binary solar system. We don't
love
have
her,
one
right?
sun, we actually have two. One's a brown dwarf, which you can only see with 2-mass infrared mode on your telescope. You have to have a digital scope to see that because it's so dim, you can't see with the naked eye.
Is the sun black or white?
The sun is white. It's bright white, so it's not black actually. If you actually were able to go out and look at the sun above the atmosphere, you'll find out that it's actually bright white
cheeseburger.
light. When it hits our atmosphere, it scatters, and when the light breaks down, we see more of the yellows because the blues are kept up there. So the sun actually
I
is
don't
bright
know.
white.
Some say that the sun is black, but
They go to
it's
Scotia
the charge of light that gives it the appearance of white.
Well, it's a nuclear explosion. Now, what's interesting about the sun is that a lot of the light doesn't even get to the surface for like 100, 200,000 years.
Oh, is Ian
So
gonna go over there?
it could be both, a little bit of both. It could be that it is a dark sun, but the light is what we can see. For example, the sun is 8 light minutes away from Earth. So if the sun went dark right now, we'd have daylight for 8 minutes.
I mean, she's aware.
Now, the
of it,
light-
but
And that's
she wasn't
90
aware.
million miles away.
90 million miles away, right? And the light that's formed on the inside from the collision of the atoms on the inside, the nuclei, when they're colliding and splitting, that light doesn't go straight from the center core right out to the outside of the sun. It actually meanders through the inside of the sun for thousands and thousands of years before it releases itself and leaves the corona. Then it takes 8 minutes to get to Earth. So the light that we're experiencing right now is hundreds of thousands of years old
Oh, they're
before it
gonna
even
look
got
up-
to
yeah,
us. You
tomorrow.
know what I'm saying? Before it left our sun.
So light is very interesting. You understand me? I want to talk about light and water for a
I
second.
don't know.
Look like
I
we
don't
might
know
get
why
to the whole
Ian's going to
elementary
school
period
so
by the time we're
often.
done with this conversation. So, I remember before I got on a
There's a lot
journey
of
of,
kids there,
teaching the financial literacy and liberation aspect, my deeper studies was into quantum physics and science and psychology and, a multitude of different things that I believe would help guide enlightenment. You understand me?
Yeah.
And so studying light, I started studying the fourth phase of water, right? Where in between, for those who don't know, water
but the
has
fever
4
is
different phases.
worrisome,
Some
'cause
people
then
say
what if
5,
she
but we're
has
going to
a-
the 4. You understand me? Solid, liquid, gas.
An
You understand me?
earache that can be
And
contagious.
I used to think about that because I say the only difference between the water and each structure is the proton arrangement, not the proton count.
Right.
So it's not something new that's happening to the water that is entered into
they
it that
haven't been going
changes its
outside,
state.
have they?
It's the arrangement,
Yeah.
you understand me, of its
Okay.
energy. And so when I thought about that,
long as it's
and
not
then of
making
course,
it worse.
light is energy, so we can say that it's light that changes, and then waters has the most different states out of any other element. And so I liken that to consciousness, right?
Yeah.
That our consciousness can be in rigid states, it can be in flow states, right?
Yeah.
But what changes? Your consciousness going from a lower consciousness to a higher consciousness is enlightenment.
Yeah.
Right?
I try to
when
feed
we
them, but I don't know if
read,
they ate it or not.
right? I always say we re-add, right? We're re-adding knowledge that is already in us because we're not actually, nothing physical is going in there. Nothing is going to tinkering and changing with your brain. It's literally electricity changing the arrangement,
Yep.
you understand me, and the structure of your state of consciousness.
Yep.
And you can see a symbol, right, and gain enlightenment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it can cause an inner knowing that can have your mind, raising this vibration, right? And, that's not something that we often think about. And a lot of people gonna be like, oh, this conversation ain't going high level for real, right? But I say the 4th phase of water on purpose because, everything around us emits energy. Every single thing. We walk into a room, we say, damn, the vibe is off.
Right.
We don't realize we speaking in scientific terms.
Yeah.
You understand
That's
me?
real science.
Yeah, it's true science. The vibe is off, but you have an intuitive connection on what that vibe is.
Yeah.
Right? That there's friction in the air, that the ions, you understand me, are positive or negative charged when you go into different environments.
Yeah.
And so if we understood that, then number one, we will create a more conscious sensitivity to the environments that we go to.
Yeah.
But we are in environments that are often very austere to, our embodiment, our aura, you understand me, and who we are, because, for those who don't know, we emit an aura from our heart.
Yeah.
You understand me? And when that is pierced, that's when we start to get sick. And we are in environments we're not supposed to be in that are in friction to whatever our vibration is. That's when we feel off, right? And there's only certain people, and I'm what Minister Louis Farrakhan said, somebody asked him once, they said, how are you able to go into all of these different type of environments? You understand me? And not be changed by them or not feel sick by them sometimes because you're around all these different type of people. And he said, I bring my own atmosphere.
That's right.
You understand me? Like, I bring my own atmosphere.
Yeah, I know exactly what it means.
Yeah.
I walk into a place and I put a bubble around myself.
Yeah.
I just literally put an energy bubble. I just see it coming out of my head and wrapping myself. And I walk through, I got my energy bubble.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that's super key. I mean, so when we go to water, right, we 70 to 90% water. Some people say I'm basically almost 100% because even those things can be made up of water.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about water and the effect that light has on water, right? Because, water is charged by light.
Yeah.
And water has memory in it.
That's
You
right.
understand me? I think it was Dr. John Pollock that was giving a breakdown on the 4th phase of water. And it was one of the same doctors who discovered, I believe, HIV back in the day, who was trying to figure out ways to utilize sound waves to create medicine.
Yeah.
You understand
Yeah.
me? And basically that every disease has a frequency, and if he can counteract that disease with a dominant frequency of the cure, then he can cure that person.
Right.
Because water traps frequency in its protons.
Yeah.
You understand me? So that if our environment is a certain vibration, then we take on that vibration of that environment.
Yep, absolutely.
It's the same study about rice and water. When you speak over certain things, you're trapping that, right? So that's why nobody who's angry should ever serve you food.
Exactly.
Or they dislike. If you make a waiter mad, don't eat the food from there anymore.
No.
Got to keep them happy and pleasant. Otherwise, they can give you food poisoning just based on their negative energy.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
But I bring that up to bring this. As human beings, the things that we should know the most about, we know the least about.
Yeah.
And that's being a human being.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Water and light, right? We are light beings and we are water beings.
Yeah.
You understand me? Wholly. So I studied that to understand the effects that the environment has on myself.
Yeah.
That's knowledge of self, to the knowledge of cells.
You got to do that.
So, what is it about light itself as a messenger of information that is important that we observe from the things that we eat, besides the breakdown I just gave,
Yeah.
right? Where we go to, but at the same time being a way for our brains to be able to travel,
Yeah.
right? Like, and then can you correlate it into biophotons?
Yeah.
You understand me?
Right.
You know, when I be thinking, I just be having thoughts, so they jump over. That's why I had to call this show a conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
So, as light beings, what does that mean?
Well, one thing people don't understand is that we are all made of actual light. Well, everything in the third dimension is made of light. And so we are light and light is us. We know that the illusion of this avatar body and this chair I'm sitting on and the table that you're sitting at, the illusion of it's there. But what is this? This is slowed down light waves. When you slow light down and then consciousness interacts with it, it collapses it into what we call solid matter. So solid matter is actually an illusion.
Right.
For example, the only thing stopping my hand from going through this chair is the repulsion of the electromagnetic frequencies. I don't actually touch the chair. You don't touch anything.
Yeah.
And so if I can phase shift the atomic frequency of my hand to match the same frequency of the atoms in this chair, I'd pass my hand right through it because atoms are 99.999% empty space.
Right, like pouring liquid into liquid.
Exactly, you know. That's why when galaxies merge together, like we're merging with a galaxy right now called Sagittarius, you don't see any real collisions happening or anything around us.
Shout out to my Sagittarius out there.
Yeah, because, you know, galaxies are mostly empty space, just like atoms. Everything's a fractal. So we are light beings, and also, because of that, we're a fractal. We have consciousness, which is also light. And
What is a fractal?
A fractal is when you take, for example, if you look at a hologram, and you go to one part of the hologram, one tiny piece, and look at it, you'll see the entire image in that smallest piece. The only thing you lose is a little bit of resolution, okay? And so it's important for people to understand that this entire realm is a fractal of a whole. In other words, as above, so below.
So if you look at an atom, it gives you the whole thing.
It gives you the whole thing, absolutely.
So human beings, would you consider a fractal of the universe?
We're a fractal of the universe, and our consciousness, even though it's one consciousness, it's also a fractal of the main master consciousness. And it's really incredible that every thought that you think in your skull, it leaves your skull as a form of a light wave. Every time you think.
Talk to him then.
Yeah, man. Every light wave, every time you think. And we know this because we could put a cap on your head in a laboratory, put a little electrodes on it, sensors, and tell you to think about something, and it's going to show up on the computer screen because the computer's reading the light waves coming out of your skull. We can't see those waves because we can only see 1% of the light spectrum as human beings.
Right.
We're limited. We don't see gamma rays. We don't see ultraviolet.
What affects us the most?
Yeah, exactly. Those are the things that are all around us that are really interacting with us all the time, and our brains too.
Right. And that's what I was getting to with the water, because the ultraviolet radiation is what causes that fourth phase to flow, like blood flow within our bodies and things of that nature, by creating a separation between positive and negative charge. And in between that small space right there is where it creates that charge and flow. And they was doing a study where they tried to take two prods, put one on the other end to create energy.
Yeah.
Right? But go ahead.
Yeah, so that's what it is. So, you know, we have this power of thought, which you were talking about, having the ability to even travel through light, leaving your mind and traveling light. You can actually connect to other realms, other dimensions through conscious thought. Quantum entangling your light waves with other light waves that exist in the universe, not only in the third dimension, but even multiple dimensions.
Right. So like quantum entanglement, for those who don't understand, are two basically atoms that are entangled with one another, even if they are at vast distances.
Right.
Right. And Einstein called it, spooky. Right, because he ain't understand what was going on.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But we understand. It ain't spooky. It ain't spooky.
He said a spooky action at a distance.
Yeah.
And you can entangle atoms, you can entangle photons, which are lights. Right. So
do you think that's what happened when people fall in love? They consider to be soulmates?
I think it happens. Well, your mind can entangle with somebody on the other side of the universe. A lot of the times, you can say, oh, I came up with this great idea.
Right.
But you really didn't. You just downloaded that idea because you entangled with the information.
Entanglement.
That's all it is. All information actually exists. And now, like big time mainstream quantum physicists and theoretical physicists are admitting that this is true now.
Yeah.
Like it's not woo-woo science no more. This is like what you're getting taught in university. When I was at MIT studying applied neuroscience, one of the things we learned about was this exact thing. The fact that not only can you walk in a room like you were saying earlier, and you can sense the vibe, and you can actually transmit negative or positive energy to somebody. If somebody's at a low frequency, and you walk in positive and high frequency enough, your light being can actually raise their energy level.
Right, right.
And if you're not high enough and they're low, they can actually drop your energy level.
Right.
It depends on how strong you are consciously. And then also we talked about the fact that we can entangle with information throughout the entire multiverse. So information can even come from other universes into your own mind. And if you're able to discern that information, you can actually then, if you can put the action behind it, it could be one of the greatest inventions. It could be Web3. It could be, you know what I'm saying, whatever we got going on now. NFTs or whatever. All this stuff comes from other places.
So biophotons is what I wanted to get to. Because biophotons to me is very interesting, because I think it's like taking the concept of science and physics and being able to apply it, you understand me, in a real world sense, and connect, you know, yourself and your willpower, right? You know, it was Dr. Wesley. He has the Book of God, and he has a very, very dope book, very amazing book. Everybody should study it. But he gives a breakdown of biophotons, and this is one of my first introductions to it, when he was talking about a study that was done at this university, you know, to study biophoton levels, which is basically, for those who don't know, is light within the human body.
Right.
And so one of the things that they studied was the fact that during a time that a patient was sick, you understand me, the light that they emitted glowed brighter, right? And of course that was because the body was working to heal itself.
Yep.
And the thought process was that if you go back to ancient human being origins, that those human beings were just light beings, complete light beings. And as, you know, as I'm positing this thought right now, as melanin, you understand me, overtook those bodies, and you're talking about, you know, that very dark melanin, and then you have light, you know, piercing out of that, which used to be where hair follicles are, you understand me? Then you're talking about a blue aura, or a blue hue, right? And so in ancient texts where you see a lot of the blue representation of gods or beings, there were the representation of the original man and woman as light beings. Now, the way that I connected to science more so is the idea that, you know, our mind has light within it, right? And it communicates directly with the light outside us, and that this is scientifically proven that we can think things and bend the wheel of reality around us. Like the Matrix played with the concepts and ideas. The spoon doesn't exist idea. But more so is, you know, each one of us have different levels of consciousness and conscious power. And the ability to bend and change reality around us, which is also a very masculine trait, because testosterone increases that biophotonic energy, you understand me, within the body. So depleted testosterone depletes willpower as well. So it's saying that, for me, I always say that one act of masculinity is willpower, the ability to take thoughts outside your mind and produce them into reality. So if you have a people who are not able to produce their thoughts, then those people are lost without that will, right? Without that power, without that godliness. And so that's something that I think about often as I see our brothers and sisters hoping and wishing and trying to bring things forth, but they just can't, because that light inside them is dead.
Plus, a lot of the male in this society right now, they're being emasculated.
Oh yeah, sterilized.
And so, you know, and a lot of it's chemical based.
Yes.
It's the food.
Chemical
it's
castration.
Chemical castration, man. It's all these microplastics that are, you know, we're inhaling them, we're eating them. It's in the food, it's in everything. They did a test on those microplastics. They were converting male frogs into women.
Right.
You know, this is just crazy stuff. So
that's a hell of a leap.
It's a big leap. That's a big leap.
Couldn't resist myself, y'all.
Oh man, but it's so true, you know. And so it's taking away the testosterone levels in men are the lowest it's been since they've been recording them.
Right.
And so to that effect, what you're saying is, you know, the levels are dropping, and the ability for men to make a lot of logical decisions is also dropping.
Right.
You see men now operating more off of emotion versus logic.
Right.
That balance of logic versus emotion isn't there anymore.
Right.
Sometimes there's a lot more men that are more emotional than women.
Yes.
So their plan is working out, you know,
Yeah.
and the plan for them really is to not let us discover our light body, not let us discover our light consciousness and the power that we really truly have inside of us to change and bend and mold this matrix to our will and overcome and supersede where they are.
Right.
What they want us to do is just continue to stay in these small little pockets, fighting each other over scraps, and not really ever getting to the higher levels and realizing that we're supposed to be able to bring our heaven right here to this earth right now.
And see, that reminds me of when you talk about the beings that can see and they look down, right? Like you imagine somebody in a tower looking down on the people playing the game of the rat race, but they can see dimensions. They can see where the people are headed. They can see all different angles, right? And those are the people, what considered to be the 1%. You understand me? And then, of course, that can be translated into multi-different, names and forms and species and things of that nature. But the ruling class, if you will, you understand me? The manipulating class, those who practice technology and deceit on the rest of the population to not know their power.
Right.
Like, the greatest trick of the devil is to get you to not know that you're a God.
That's it.
You understand me? Because the moment that you have self-realization of your power, number one, you stop looking at them to help manage you discover it.
Exactly.
Because if we go to chattel slavery times, and I like to say chattel slavery just because it's such a different form than the rest of the slavery. But chattel slavery is all about breaking that knowledge of self and that knowing of who you are. Because how can you make a slave unless he is completely dependent upon your will?
Exactly.
And the testosterone-filled masculine slaves were the hardest ones to break, the ones that have their own faith and belief systems, because they weren't going to relinquish that power to someone else.
Right.
No, they fought, and there were insurrections all throughout times because that willpower was fighting another will. You understand me? And so now what we got is more so Chris Rock, where you don't fight the will no more. You just let it slap you around. You understand me? I just had to drop another one. I couldn't help myself. But the lack.
Oh, man.
High level jokes, y'all. It's high level jokes. High level comedy. But no, for real though, because here we are in present day, and when we talk about chemical castration, man, this is very important. Like, we've went through so many different phases fighting those beings. You understand me? Who bring in drugs, who bring in guns, who bring in propaganda, who bring in, MK Ultra, you understand me? And
toxins and
poisons from the air to every single thing.
It's not black people doing that.
No, definitely not. we ain't got that type of control.
No.
Unfortunately, that's the issue.
Right.
So, like, you can take that back to, it's unfortunate that, the greatest minds are producing destructive things. Their greatest minds are producing destructive things. And now what we are in this phase of reality is figuring out who we are, because that's still always the biggest key to all of this. Because the hardest thing is to teach another black man or woman who you are.
Right.
Let me teach you whether you want to call yourself black, original, you understand me, Moor, Hebrew, Israelite, alien, whatever you want to call yourself. You can describe yourself as an Anunnakian. But understanding at the core, you understand me, that being of godliness that you possess, and that is unstoppable once you truly recognize who you are. Not just from literature, not just through paperwork. I'm talking about through spirit, things that can't be taught, that have to be known deep within.
You have to walk in your own power. When I walk places, when I go places, I expect the universe to unfold for me. I expect things to open up for me and things to just happen for me when I walk into places. I can just be going to the grocery store. I'm walking in power. People, if they can jump inside of my body and feel what I'm feeling, they'd be like, God damn, this guy really, you know what I'm saying? I'm walking, everywhere I go, I'm walking in pure power. I act like I'm commanding and wielding the universe to my will. And that's something that scares us. But the reason why is because we've been programmed to think if you do that, that's of the devil and that's evil. And you gotta beg somebody else to give you this power. You can't just walk in this kind of power. But the same power that created everything we see in this entire universe, in this multiverse, is the same power that's inside of my body.
That's a fact. I want to talk about something, because when we talk about power, culture is probably, our culture specifically, which is getting to our spirit, powers this world. We are the battery. Melanin is a battery itself. Right? And when we talk about that, I was studying, years ago, the Kardashev scale.
Okay.
Right? When we talking about type 0 to 1, 3, 4 civilizations.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was studying back then, I would relate everything I learned in physics and science to black culture and how it could be an analogy to where we can utilize to liberate ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So for those who don't know, the Kardashev scale is a model of, how civilizations can grow, if you will, right? Into more efficient system and models, or more control, right? So we are currently, what I believe, like 0.5, but type 0 civilization.
Type 0.
Right, type 0.
Type 0. We crawling though, we trying to crawl.
We try, the concepts are getting out there.
Yeah, it is,
but, the politics are in the way, to be honest.
That's what happened, the polytricksters.
Yeah, the polytricksters. So type 0 is saying that we get our energy from dead coal and plants.
Yeah.
You understand me? That, our energy systems, number one, are inefficient. Mm-hmm. You understand me? And that's why we steady have these energy wars. Yeah. You understand me? That we are dependent upon these resources, that we don't have the ability to reproduce ourselves. Mm-hmm. You understand me? And or have control over supply. Yeah. And so, that's why human beings are always at risk for extinction. Ideally, is because we don't control external things outside. You understand me? We can't control a meteor hitting this planet. We can't control the sun exploding. We can't control any of those things. So that's why man now just wants to jump to another planet. You understand me? Because he don't believe that he will be able to gain control before it's too late, right? Exactly. But a type 1 is more so talking about the ability to control weather, control earth, control the sun, or at least in a sense being able to absorb all energy from the sun and utilize that to power the world that is today. And then you have the analogy of type 1 type systems, right? Type 1 language would be what would be considered like English. English, they're a language that's going extinct every day. Yeah. You understand me? And English is rapidly fast growing all across the planet Earth to become a type 1 language where everybody on the planet speaks English. Yep. So that is a method, you understand me, of energy transfer, communication, and translation that all beings on this planet Earth will be in understanding. Yep. Then when we're talking about systems like music, hip hop is I consider hip hop basically a type 1 system when you're talking about music. Yeah. Because hip hop produced beings, number one, and tones and frequencies and rhythms that are known all across the planet Earth. Yeah, right. And then you have other beings, the Beyoncés of the world, the Kanyes of the world, who are known by people all throughout the entire planet Earth. Yep. You understand me? From a one world system, these are very identifiable symbols, right? Because they're not, you don't know the person. Yeah. So the person the brand is a symbol, which is a representation of a energy. Yeah. You understand me? That has a translation that creates feeling, right? From each person that knows it in their perspective and their connection to it. But after I say all of that, I say all that to say, hip hop culture is the most powerful energy that exists on this planet Earth. You understand me? Because it can move reality in ways that we don't even understand yet. Because it's a one world communication system to all melanated people across the planet Earth. That we can literally put everybody on the same vibration and frequency, you understand me, by exporting culture throughout the diaspora. Yeah. And if we understood how powerful that concept was, we have the ability to leap past and make quantum leaps over everybody with this system that we created called hip hop. Yeah. And this is why we have so many culture vultures, because culture vultures understand this expressway throughout the world. Oh, yeah. If I connect to a rapper, if I'm a white guy, and if I'm a smart white guy, and if I can afford it, I need to get close to the rappers. Yep. The rappers don't realize they have more leverage than I do.
They're the big influencers of the world.
Biggest. I've never seen a rapper understood their value so much when they stand next to a white guy and give them their presence. Yeah. Because what you're doing is you're giving them an entry into culture, and you're giving them an audience where you're spreading their message and connecting them to hip hop. Right. And it's wildly known that there are a lot of culture vultures. We just don't speak on it. Yeah. You understand me? Because people are, favored for this, favored for that. But once you really understand it, there was I'm not gonna name a name at this point, famous, I think he might be a billionaire, maybe a couple $100 million or whatever. but I was speaking in the same arena he was speaking in. He was speaking right after me.
Yeah.
You know, and I kept trying to rub shoulders. I'm giving him the cold shoulder.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't want no pictures, no nothing.
Right.
Because what I realized that he would get more value if I took a picture with him than he would get from me.
Right.
Because now he's connected to top thought leader in the culture. He seems down. You understand me? He seems connected.
Yeah.
History would look at that picture and say we had a relationship.
Yeah.
You understand me? How could he be other than, you know, in the way we trying to depict his morality if he was connected to 19 Keys at that time?
Yep.
So why wouldn't I utilize that as leverage? Why would I just allow somebody to absorb my value, connect to my culture, but we don't think about time? We don't think about our true power at all.
Energy vampires.
Because, yeah, energy vampires.
Yeah.
And we utilize our dead leaders as our coal and our energy. You understand me?
Yeah.
So we're not operating in the present system controlling our weather, controlling our culture, controlling our time, controlling our language, our mind, our music.
Yeah.
So for me, it's about taking, you know, melanated people from a type 0 civilization to a type 1 civilization.
Yeah.
And then, you know, type 2 and 3, those civilizations, you talking about controlling planets.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All kind of stuff. We don't even need to go there yet. We're far off. But it's an interesting model and it's an interesting idea when you're talking about measuring progress of a people that have been trapped under another people's thumb.
Yeah.
You understand me? And working to increase the aggregate efficiency of our output.
Yeah.
What we put out based on the energy that we get back.
Yeah.
And how do we increase that as a people,
Right.
you know, for a revolution,
Yeah.
right? But I want to talk to you about something else because I heard you talking about AI. Now, I look at, we know we are in a time of declining population,
Yeah.
right? Specifically in America anyway. You understand me? When Elon Musk said that, you know, we need population growth, and Bill Gates say we need population decline.
Yeah.
But what I realized, they was talking about two different places. Elon Musk was talking about America, Bill Gates was talking about Africa.
Yep.
So Bill Gates was saying that they're gonna have another 2 billion people by 2050. We need population decline over there.
Yeah.
Elon Musk say, well, listen, we already have fewer births than we do deaths. You understand me? So therefore, we on a decline.
Yeah.
We need more birth, right? So he trying to get out of here.
Yeah. He's trying to go. He's trying to get out.
He said, I'm out, man. The
One-way
party
trip to
too
Mars.
crowded. You feel me? He grew up in South Africa, so he know what it's like where it's 7% of them over there.
You know.
So it's interesting because I look at those who are in power, of course, power wants to maintain power,
Yeah.
right? So it only makes sense that the people that are in power wants to continue to cede power, and they don't want to concede power to anybody else. So
Yeah.
when you're talking about playing God, that's what they want to do. If you can't have the population size, we have to figure out another way to maintain control.
Yep.
And AI to me is one of those ways to be able to maintain control. You won't have the brain trust anywhere because people outside are no longer just coming in and saying, well, we'll give our brain to America, spark invention and innovation.
Yeah.
There's decreasing innovation and invention in this country.
Yep.
So not only you got AI in the form of artificial intelligence, and I'm 19 keys, so I break things down into 1-9. But A is numerical 1 and I is numerical 9. And that 19 is representation of male, female, conscious, subconscious, you understand me? God itself, because everything is between that 1 through 9.
Gotcha.
Collapse back into a 1. When we talk about artificial intelligence, it's more so not even just AI of artificial intelligence, artificial insemination, artificial ingredients as well, right? And these are all the ways that I see that those are in power are working to maintain power, utilizing AI. Can you speak upon the future of AI and where we headed?
Yeah, definitely. The AI is dangerous. If you look into the ancient Sumerian tablets, you'll discover in the Epic of Gilgamesh, who was considered to be half human, half god. They call him a demigod. His father was Enki, and he had a human mother, according to the tablets.
Yeah.
And they wanted to send Enlil, who was his uncle, sent him on a journey, a hero's journey. This is the original story of Noah's Ark, by the way. This is where the Bible got it from.
So Sumerian, for those who don't know, the Anunnaki, first civilization?
First civilization, the cradle of civilization, they call it the cradle of civilization coming out of Mesopotamia.
What did they invent?
Roads, city grid streets, bicameral Congress, plumbing systems. I mean, you name it, everything you could think of, schooling and chemistry and mathematics, and they even had a metric system back then. You're talking about, thousands, hundreds of thousands of years ago, they had a metric system. And so they literally, the whole modern society we have today came out of Sumer. There's a tablet that where Enlil is speaking, and he's showing his sister this crystal tablet, by the way, is what it's called. And he's showing her his plans for all time on this planet. He said, these plans I have here, these plans are gonna last for all time. And that's where we're still in it today. We still got the same poly trickster program he put in back then. They had their own numerical kingship, the way they ran theirselves, but they gave humans the political system.
That's a very
And they also installed
idea.
inflation at that same exact time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a very, 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 very interesting idea.
Yeah.
So in that system, right, I know that children who are born, and at the same time you're born in any time, you succumb to a dominant paradigm. The dominant frequency wins, right? And so do you believe that based on, you know, the Anunnaki or Enlil having this crystal tablet, you understand me, where he wrote down his plans for time dominance,
Yeah.
you understand me, so that he can conquer ages of time, do you think that it's possible to go against that plan, you understand me, and create our own will for the planet?
Yeah, it can. The program that he put in was so good. You know, we're born, we're given a name, a race, and a religion, and we're basically, we grow up defending that whole identity. It's a fake identity. It's not really us. We've kind of forgotten and relinquished who we really are and given it up to this system, this institutionalized system that was put in place thousands of years ago. But if we really come together, that's the biggest part we got to do. We got to come together and stop all this divide and conquer. You know, you're this religion, I'm this thing, or you're this light skin and I'm this dark skin. All this stuff we got to, you know, black men want to fight black men all the time. We want to attack each other socially now on social media because you doing too good and I'm not doing as good as you. We got to drop all of that. We got to stop all of that. We got to synchronize. We got to realize that we're better together than apart, not tearing each other down, fighting each other, slapping each other, all this kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
We got to come together and we got to realize, man, how can I bring a piece of the puzzle? How can you bring a piece of the puzzle? You know what I'm saying? Just sitting here talking to you, you got pieces of the puzzle that I don't have, and I got pieces of the puzzle that you don't have. We can start building a whole doggone puzzle. We can put a puzzle together. And you add more people. Next thing you know, that picture, that painting is amazing.
Yeah.
We can make a mosaic.
Yeah.
And so until we get to that point, though, we're always going to be bickering and fighting and arguing over resources and pocket watching and hating and worrying about this, worrying about that, because that's the program they instilled into us. We got to now override this DNA and this RNA programming code. We got to say, you know what? We got to talk to ourselves. You know what? I'm being a hater right now. I'm being a troll right now. I'm pocket watching right now. I'm being jealous right now. Why am I doing that? And analyze inside of ourselves. Why am I doing this? Why do I feel like this? And work on our internal self and learn how to not be that way. Learn how to give somebody the benefit of the doubt. Learn how to try to work with somebody. Learn how to ask better questions so you can understand better instead of getting angry. And you know, learn how to control your emotional state. And when we can do that and we can link up and we can make big power moves together, that's when the world's going to change.
That's very powerful. You understand me? And of course, it's something that, you know, we've known but not been able to do.
Yeah.
So we talk about DNA, right? Because really, in order to give a breakdown on, you know, the Anunnaki and the Sumerians, we need to dedicate an entire,
Oh yeah, that's a whole.
right, breakdown for that story, and we can, you know, say that for another day and time. But I want to go and talk about DNA and the ability to upgrade our DNA.
Yeah.
You know, one of the ways that I upgrade my DNA is through travel. You understand me? And through meditation and eating and environment, things of that nature. But can you talk about DNA and our ability to upgrade our DNA and some of the methods that we can utilize practically?
Definitely. First of all, people have to understand that DNA is a storage medium. It actually stores data and information. So when we say things like your program code and you're operating off your code, it's actually a true scientific statement. 1 gram of DNA can hold 433 petabytes of data. There was one scientist, George Church, replicated his ebook 80 billion times and downloaded it onto 1 gram of DNA, which is one drop on the tip of your finger.
80 billion times.
80 billion. What he did was he realized that DNA stored information. He was like, wow, our body is full of data. The whole human body is full of data. Billions and billions and billions of petabytes of data. And what he said was, he realized you can take data from a server, a computer, and convert it from zeros and ones into A's, C's, T's, and G's, which is what your DNA reads. And then you can actually download the data into the DNA and store data in a volume instead of storing it linear, like time, one arrow. But when you can store it in a volume, you can store much more information. So then he replicated it 80 billion times, and then he transferred it from DNA, from A's, C's, T's, and G's back into zeros and ones and uploaded it back into a computer. So he recognized that DNA is also a server. He's like, man, this is incredible. So we have this ability in us to move data and information. Now, because of something called epigenetic memories, we know that 15 to 20 generations before us, that programming code was downloaded into our body. So you're born with this hard-coded information already in your body. Most of it is only, though, this is the sad part, is only trauma that came from previous generations. All the slave beatings and whoopings and the separation of loved ones and the buck fighting and all that stuff, it's in your body. That's why when black people start feeling like I'm depressed, I got PTSD, but they don't know why. I'm feeling down or ill or angry or whatever. A lot of it's the epigenetics. So to overcome this, what scientists realize, you can actually start to re-encode that DNA by doing simple things. Simple. One thing is, write down 10 positive affirmations about yourself, and then speak those out loud 3 times a day, out loud, for 21 days, and your DNA begins to change and rewrite itself. You begin to start to believe those cymatic frequencies coming out of your mouth, that your body is actually listening to the information. Like you said before, the body is mostly water. The water has memory. The water in your body speaks conscious energy. So when you are releasing that conscious energy into the atmosphere, your body is then absorbing it back into the water, and then the light force energy is rewriting your DNA. And so we can actually rewrite our DNA. We can change the way we think and see and feel about ourselves just by speaking out loud. Like you said, meditation, and I love travel. That's all I do is travel nonstop. You already know that. That's going to enlighten and open up, broaden all your horizons. It's going to make you see things from other perspectives and understand. It's going to raise your consciousness. Traveling, I tell people all the time, leave your zip code. You got to.
No, that's a fact, because you got to think about the making of a slave. If I want to make somebody a slave, I don't want them to see the world.
Right.
You understand me? I need them to only see from my perspective.
Yeah.
You understand me? Because therefore, they're going to have my same biases engineered within them, and I can control the radius of where they go.
Yep.
You may think that, oh, if you walk over here, you might die. Somebody's going to attack you. But if you actually traveled there, there's no way a person can make up that lie that causes you to halt yourself within fear.
Yeah.
Right? And most people, God is fear. You understand me? Everything that they fear creates the radius, the circumference, the diameter of their thinking, their movement, right? Their entire being. And so breaking away from, those connections of fear allows you to be restored into who you really are, to walk around as a child. A child doesn't know fear. A child is programmed into fear. A child is programmed into civilization. You understand me? Coming under jurisdiction and code to operate in a manner of behavior that allows them to, be so-calledly free within a world of this social contract that we have. But the reality of it is that for us to be able to develop and to grow into who we are and to be able to transition out of these thought forms that control this world, you understand me? And to break these cabals of power, it has to start with this realization that becomes a field. Or you talked about unity. Elijah Muhammad say our unity is more powerful than an atomic bomb. But then when you think about what is an atomic bomb, you understand me? The breaking of those atoms. You understand me? And when we build, the guys always talk about, we cracking atoms. You understand me? We create new worlds. But what we think about all of that energy coming together, because human being energies are jewels. You understand me? And if we were able to bring that electricity together, it literally would be an atomic bomb. And that sort of energy has the ability to create atomic shift on this planet. You understand me? That can create new paradigm shifts on this planet Earth. So anytime anything is observed through the collective, a shift happens at that moment. There's no collective observations or world events that don't change the world. Because once the whole entire world gains a collective perspective on something, it creates a new dimension, a new angle, a new inventions, innovations, realities. Everything starts to happen from that moment. And we've been through many of them in our lifetime already.
Absolutely.
And it's just in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
We'd have been through recessions, paradigm shifts, different new presidents. We'd have been through 9/11. We'd have been through so many different things.
Yeah.
Today, during the timing of this filming, there's a terrorist attack that happened. And April happens to be one of the most observant months of white terrorist attacks, right? From Timothy McVeigh, from the Oklahoma bombings to the Columbine, right?
Wow.
And it's a few other ones. April is one of those, it's the 4th month. It's a lot of things that happen on the 4s.
Yeah.
And once we understand that we living in this world of a 4-corner contract, you understand me?
Yeah.
That, paperwork rules this world, and it lifts us off of being attached to the land itself.
Yeah.
That when we walk around, we don't look down at our feet and say we own the land. We have dominion over the land.
Yeah.
We think that we are always on someone else's land. We are always under someone else's control. And that mental observation depletes the soul of being able to have a real connection with the earth itself.
Yeah, it does.
When you look around, there's somebody who has sky rights and land rights.
Yeah.
Not ownership, but rights.
Rights.
Right? And once we realize we living in someone else's plans, as you say. Whether you believe it's the Anunnaki, whether you believe it's the 1%, whether you believe it's these families of control, you have to know that we're living in somebody else's time system, and it works very well.
Oh, very well.
Very well.
They mastered this sucker.
Way too well, matter of fact. And we are controlled by invisible forces.
Yeah.
And if you don't think you do, you stop at that stop sign. You stop when there's a street light. You understand me? And you don't cross that line because something may happen to you. An invisible force, no police around, no people, but you still listen.
Yeah.
You understand me? That is, you talking about some people, it may not be cars for miles, and they will still follow that system, right? I want you to touch on the ideas of systems, because institutions is what I focus on, like the reality of we building institutions are only things that can dominate existing systems.
Right.
But what is the energy form of a system to where it actually has real power and control over human forms?
Yeah. Well, the way that they built all these institutionalized systems that we have that are controlling mankind, they're all predicated on fear. You'll find that fear is the biggest thing. For example, you go to school, if you don't get good grades, you're going to get in trouble. You won't pass the next grade. If you act up in school, you might get, stay in line or whatever, you might get spanked with the ruler or the paddle or whatever. Obviously on the street is follow these exact rules or you're going to go to prison. So they have all these systems in place. And these systems that they put in place, when they have these little fear factors built into them, even religion has a lot of fear factors put into it.
Absolutely.
People fall in line because why? Fear, the body pays attention to fear first. The mind is always, okay, there's fear. I gotta stop this fear. I gotta do whatever it takes to not allow this, whatever this fear is, to happen. I don't want it to happen to me. So the body goes into fight or flight mode, and then it starts focusing on the fear. Once the body does that, these people who rule, the ruling elite, they know that we got them with the fear. Now we can manipulate them to do whatever we want. So they always do the same thing. They create the problem, okay? They wait for the reaction, and then they provide the solution to that problem. So they're actually manipulating all sides of it based on fear. The fear is a key thing in all these institutions that has us locked in, because people, when that fear hits them, they don't recognize that fear is not real. False evidence appearing real is what fear is, right? The acronym. But for them, it's as real as it can be. But in true reality, fear is a choice.
Yeah, fear comes from ignorance.
Yeah.
Once you know something, there's nothing to fear because you have all the data. You know exactly how to move, what not to do, exactly what it is, what's not. And once you come to that realization, it gives you so much power over all.
Yeah.
Right? And so becoming fearless, you understand me, is key.
Yeah.
Our bodies all automatically store systems to tell us fight or flight.
Yeah.
That in moments of situation is giving us a signal that you are in danger.
Yeah.
So this danger needs to teach you to make a decision.
Exactly.
Either this tiger that's coming right now, you understand me, you're going to stand very still and hope that it doesn't attack you, or are you going to run, right? Or are you going to fight?
Yeah.
You understand me? Because they're fright, flight, then fight. You understand me? And I think that that's one, and the fight is the decision that you have.
Yeah.
That even if this tiger is so close, I can't run, I can't stand still now, not here. I have to figure out a way where I'd rather go down fighting.
Yep.
And I think that that's the part of human decision making that is never deposited as an idea of this is an option.
Yeah.
That you can always choose to fight in every moment, in every situation, even if the certainty is death.
Yep.
You understand me? Because at least you would die being alive.
Exactly.
You understand me?
Exactly.
But to freeze or just to run, because there's times where, flight is the most, intelligent option that you have, right? But fighting, there's something so powerful and majestic about that, because that's the human spirit colliding with whatever force that is in front of it.
Yeah.
When you see two boxers fight, those are spirits going at it.
Right.
And whoever has the most will win. You understand me? Not even sometimes we have the most skill or better technique.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's all about who got that greatest spirit.
Yeah.
Because the fight is often won before you get into the ring.
That's right.
There's one spirit that's already decided, whether it's deep into their consciousness, subconscious, where they don't even know it yet.
Yeah.
They've already decided that they're the loser.
Yep.
You understand me? And sometimes you can try to overcome it with confidence, right? What you know about yourself and my training, my skill, your overcome it with your ego. You understand me? Well, I can do this even if I can't do this. You understand me? But then there's mathematics. The mathematics of this person's skill, level, confidence, will, all of this is higher than your frequency.
Yeah.
And when these collide, this one is going to win.
Yep.
And that's why I like the idea of mathematics, because mathematics really sets us upon understanding reality in a very practical and logical capacity.
Yeah.
There's spiritual intuition and spiritual intelligence, yes, 100%. And I think that wholly on this planet Earth, men and women are disconnected between the feminine energy that exists. Men are completely disconnected nowadays from the masculine energy, but the feminine energy, because we talk about a woman's movement, but there's not a lot of feminine energy involved in the movements. And the feminine energy, Mother Tanetta talked about it. She talked about the 9 planets, right? And the feminine.
Okay.
And in the connection with, the astronomy and the feminine energy. And why that 9, circulates that 1. I told we'll get to them 1 9s. We're gonna always find them 1 9s. But we talk about them that 9 circulating that 1, that consciousness circulating subconsciousness. And 1995, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan opened up the Million Man March speech with the secrets of the number 19. And he talked about the idea that when that 1 is next to the 9, it represents something to be uncovered. You understand me?
Gotcha.
And then he went on to break down that these monuments that was there representing the 16th and the 3rd president is 19. And he said that this monument up here is 555 feet high. You put a 1 next to that, represents 1555 when black people came over here. And he said that on these shores and these steps, you understand me, were a trade of black bodies, representing some of the Masonic secrets of how they first produced this country. You understand me? And he was giving that breakdown in front of course, almost 2 million black men, future president, the future billionaires of the planet Earth, everybody. That was a world-shifting event, but when I listened to that, I thought about the fact that, the body itself, our bodies, atoms, I call Allah the original man, ATOM, you understand me? Or I say AGTC, Allah God the creator. You understand me? But at the end of the day, our bodies, our carbon bodies, our melanin bodies, we are electric, frequencies, you understand me? We are the most powerful electric conduits, you understand me, just based on our physicality. And I think what happens with society is, number 1, jealousy, but 2 is the lack of appreciation of our parts we're supposed to play on this planet. You understand me? That, we gonna always be dark melanated, beautiful, shiny, sheen beings. You understand me? But when you allow things like the Hermetic prophecies that talked about, when human beings developed, so-called developed intelligence, those were white human beings, and that being spread across the ecosystem of the planet Earth, creating a white supremacy. And then melanated people like, well, man, we was charting star systems and speaking in geometry and using mathematical language, you understand me, before we ever seen a light-skinned person on this planet Earth. But you can't, if you want to do anything for race relations, you cannot forget about the story of time.
can't.
And I ain't gonna ever call it history. History is just the lies.
Yeah.
The story of time is about what happened on this planet, the true history.
The true history.
And if you ever, if a white person or black person, brown, yellow, orange, all these frequencies of colors that represent subscriptions to different cultures, ideologies, values, norms, rituals,
Yeah.
ever want to have a place where there's commonality and trust and alignment, you have to accept the truth of reality.
Yeah.
Not the stories that was told by the winners and conquerors that fit the propaganda of the controllers and rulers, but the true story on this planet Earth.
Yeah.
That's the only way we get to a true compromise
Yep.
between the people on this planet Earth that have a treaty of understanding. You
I
understand
always
me?
tell people the past is prologue. People say, why do you always study the past? Why are you into this ancient texts and ancient books and all? Because until you understand what happened back then, you won't be able to build a future. The future is going to be built based on what you know about your true past and your true history. If you can't figure out at least as close as possible to what was happening back then, the future is still going to be a gray area.
Aliens.
Yeah.
Let's talk about aliens.
Yeah.
I can't have Mr. Billy Carson on here without talking about aliens. My theory is aliens are black men.
Yeah.
That's my theory. Now, that of course this comes from many different sources, but I remember I was reading something, or watching it rather, I can't tell you the difference, where they was talking about, spacesuits, human spacesuits, and how human beings will have to change if they were traveling in space, right? Number one, there's more radiation, so you're gonna have to have darker melanin skin. With that lack of gravity, you will have a smaller, less dense body. So you're going to be a skinny, dark-skinned, big head, black man or woman. You understand me? So, these are spacesuits.
Right.
I mean,
they are
we deal with radiation. That's what the melanin does.
Yeah.
You feel me?
Radiation into heat.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you believe in aliens?
I believe in aliens.
Are you an alien?
Well, we're all aliens. You know what I'm saying? So
Alien might answer like that. Some people say this brother be thinking, man, he might be an alien.
a lot of people say that, but I think that we are the aliens. When you talk to the Aboriginals, I went to Australia. I went on a walkabout 8 miles out into the doggone nowhere, nothingness. I mean, just out there, man, with the fires.
Yeah.
Okay. This is right before the lockdown came, and I'm out there looking for these ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs in Carryong 9 in Australia, which we found them. We sent those glyphs to the Board of Antiquities of Egypt, and they authenticated them as being authentic Proto-Egyptian hieroglyphs. And so my conversation with the elders was, what is your homegrown, handed-down verbal history? Because they have a verbal history. And the Aboriginal elders said that they were seeded on this planet. They said that the Pleiadians brought them to Earth, and they were the first people on Earth. Those are black Aboriginals.
Who are the Pleiadians?
The Pleiadians, if you look up in the sky at night, there's this area of the sky where they call them the Seven Sisters. Homer's Iliad talks about them. They're talked about in the Bible, talked about in Sumerian tablets. The Greeks, the Romans, they all look up to the Pleiades. It's actually, we call them the Seven Sisters because only 7 bright stars you can see with the naked eye, but there's many more stars there. But in that region of the sky, according to so many ancient texts and so many ancient civilizations, there was advanced civilizations there. Before this area had any inhabitants, that was the region or sector of the galaxy that had a lot of life. But a big war broke out. And in this war, there was something being used called the Brahmahanda weapon, okay? The Brahmahanda weapon, which actually could destroy planets. And this weapon would blow up planets. And imagine if you're in a star system and there's planets blowing up, planet-sized debris is crashing into your planet. So this created a space refugee situation, kind of,
Space refugees.
Yeah, space refugees. And they started fleeing and going out to different stars. Orion, Aldebaran, Zeta Reticulus, all these different star systems, Sirius, Draco. This is why
they had the Draco?
Oh yeah, the Draco star system's up there. That's what the Great Pyramid in Giza in Cairo is aligned with those, with Draco, Aldebaran, Orion, and Sirius. And so we was like, man, what's going on here? So the more you dig into this text, it's like, man, these people fled from war, re-established themselves on other planets, and they eventually found this solar system and came down here and created another breakaway civilization. These were the Atlantean people. Now, when you analyze the text, it gives descriptions of these peoples from time to time. And if you look at, for example, the Sphinx in Egypt, you look at the features on the Sphinx, you can see this, it's a face of a black person, right? And what's interesting is some of these Anunnaki, they were more albino, not all of them. Some had albino type skin. They weren't Caucasian white, but they had albino skin, but they had the African features. Some of them had blue eyes, but they had the knotted hair.
Like Prometheus.
Right, kind of like that. But Prometheus is still kind of really more almost like milk white. If you look at a black mulatto, a black or a black person that has that, you know,
More
that skin
brownish
condition.
glow.
Yeah. And but they had the knotted hair, knotted blonde hair, and blue eyes, a lot of them.
Like the Aborigines.
Yeah, like the Aboriginals, and also the people of Melanesia, right here, you know, in Asia. And so I did a whole story on those, a whole TV show on those before. So I really dug deep into it. I was like, wow, these people are really potentially not from this planet. And so the more you analyze it and realize, wow, then other people from other star systems brought humans here. This is like, this Earth is like
parents abandoning their kids?
No, what it was is like they were trying to find a place to keep their civilization going. Not like the species going. Okay, and so that's why you have people that look Asian and people that look Caucasian and people that look black and people that look. There's a mixture of people, according to what I've read, that appear to be dropped off here. This is like an abandoned seed colony. This planet.
Interesting.
And then after that, much later, these other people showed up. These other Anunnaki people showed up, took advantage of a situation where people were in a lower state of consciousness. They were not technologically advanced. We were more advanced spiritually.
So when they were dropped off, you saying that the races were dropped off, or were they all dark-skinned, melanated people?
The first people on this planet were all black, and then you find something interesting in the Emerald Tablets. After Thoth comes to the land of Khem to help rebuild civilization because the flood had destroyed Khem. After he does it, he tells his people that he brought with him. He brought people with him from other planets, and they went around the planet. He said, go around the planet and duplicate what we did here. Now, this is my personal belief. This is not in any text. I always tell you the difference between what I believe and what I've read. Now, these people, for example, if I'm now going to be the king or the ruler of Asia, and I'm a being from a place that looks Asian, I'm going to brand those people. I think they genetically branded people to look, in other words, these are my people. Look at them, they look just like me. And the reason why I say this is because if you go and look in the genetic books, the geneticists actually discovered that the difference between a black person, a white person, an Asian person, a Native American person, 2% variance in genes. But that 2% variance that makes a different race altogether couldn't happen in 200,000 years. That's the only amount of time we've been here. So they're saying it would have taken millions, multi-millions of years for that to happen, naturally.
Now, from my studies, there's no records of Caucasians past 6,000 years.
See, Caucasians are the newest race on the planet. They're the newest race. If you look at the Sumerian tablets, the Caucasians came from out of the Caucasus Mountains. It says something to the effect of when they were in the Caucasus, they then, he said, the exact terminology was that they, there's a certain term that they use for that, not manufactured the Caucasian, but they said that they had, the word will come back to me. It's like they made them in a way. It's something, it's a terminology that they use, it'll come back to me, that how they made the Caucasian, but they're the newest being on the planet, according to these texts. The other races were already here. We had blue people, green people, you had, black, you had yellow. Yeah.
This will be a great movie.
Yeah.
Now, there's a belief that, based on studying the Anunnaki, that they are coming back. You understand me? Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, in all the texts, they always say that they're going to return. The reason why they left was there was a pyramid war. It was the second pyramid war. Amun-Ra, also known as Marduk. You can look up Marduk's name in the Torah. He's in the Bible. He's in the Sumerian tablets. These guys are everywhere. He's Amun-Ra. He started a war because he wanted to extend his kingship. He wanted to take over kingship in other areas that he wasn't supposed to on the planet, and so forth and so on. And so that war was nuclear. They used weapons, and the reason why you know it's nuclear because the description of the way that the people were dying, It was they said the black people. This specifically says that their nails were falling out, their hair was falling out, blood was coming out of their eyes. This is radiation sickness, obviously. And so we know that it was a nuclear war. When you go into those regions, the Mohenjo-Daro and the Indus Valley, the buildings there turned to glass. They're still sitting there. The bodies are still laying. The bodies are laying in the street, holding hands. No animals have scavenged on those bodies. They're still laying there. You go to Africa, to Cairo, and you go to Giza. If you put your hand in the sand and pull up, every now and then you pull up balls of glass. That's what they used to carve the scarab beetles out of, because they're making a ode to the gods for the war that happened. So to turn sand into glass, you have to have 3,000 degree temperature blast, right? So we know that there was a war that happened that created this situation, you know? So it's just really amazing, man. The technology we have now is just a copycat of what they already had back then. And that war is what really caused them to want to flee. In one of the tablets, Enki goes to Anu and says, can you please stop the evil wind? That's what they call it. That's nuclear fallout. He's like, there's nothing I can do. Forebode and get in your ship. And so he told him, like, turn around, man, get in that ship. We got to get out of here, because this thing is coming. And they said that evil wind covered the land and killed all the animals, the people, and everything else. And a lot of these people never came back. But they said that, you know, that they'll be coming back. Now, there's two ways to look at it. One way is some of the offspring is still here on this planet. You know, probably most likely maybe that ruling elite class. And then it's said that there will be some type of a future situation where they will return and take back claim of the rightful kingship of this planet. So, and in the Emerald Tablets, it says the same thing, which is interesting because it's even older than those tablets. It's like 36,000 years old. And it says that far in the future, an enemy will come from deep space. So it's pretty interesting.
No, it's definitely interesting. Now, what are the different type of aliens? You know, because you got the grays, you got the blacks. I want to know, what's the different type of aliens?
There's all kinds. You have black people. I think most of the UFOs that are flying overhead are being piloted by black people. That's my personal opinion.
Now, that's very interesting, because Honorable Elijah Muhammad said decades ago that there was a mothership up there, you understand me? And he gave a full description of the mechanics of the mothership, how it was piloted, you understand me, how the people lived.
Wow.
And he said, I believe it was made in Japan, you understand me, during that time. And, you know, he was the first to introduce the concept of like aliens and telling the government, you understand me, that the mothership was going to destroy them with these different type of bombs that they had. And he gave a breakdown on how many baby planes that were there, and that there were black men and women up there. Like, it's a very detailed account. And then after that, in the 1930s is when they started to create those programs towards observing UFOs, and then started to create counter stories of why they were UFOs, right? But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad maintained his knowledge of UFOs and the account of their existence, and so does the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan today. And number one, I don't believe the UFO community gives any real reverence and appreciation to what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was doing back in those days. And
if he did that, he was ahead of his time.
Oh yeah, for surely. Oh, he was ahead. He was breaking it down back then. You understand me? He was like, listen, man, here's the people of Mars. We got the mothership up there. You understand me? There's black people in the mothership. They got the baby planes. They got these certain type of missiles. When they drop